Welcome back to the ZIZO Effect podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Shabat. In this season, we're exploring the unique perspectives of agents, managers, and executives in the call center space. Today, we're joined by David Black, a collections manager at National Recovery Solutions with over 20 years of experience in the industry. David started his career as an agent and has worked his way up through the various leadership roles. In this episode, we'll discuss remote workforce management, the impact of KPIs on performance, and how to keep teams engaged in a remote environment. Whether you're looking to improve team productivity or build a stronger workplace culture, today's episode offers valuable insights you won't want to miss. So get ready, it's game time. Welcome, everybody, to the ZIZO Effect podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Shabat. I am the founder and CEO of ZIZO Technologies. And today we have a wonderful guest. Our guest today is David Black, who is a collections manager over at National Recovery Solutions. He's got over 20 years of experience in working in call centers in different roles, and from sales to collections. And David, welcome to the ZIZO Effect podcast.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to hear from you and get your take. And just real quick before we get into some of your personal intros here, just to let the audience know and let you know and remind our audience, I should say, this season, what we're doing, we're in our second season and we're trying to get perspectives from different roles within the contact center space, from the agents, who are the frontline workers, to the managers who are, charged with leading the workforce, and then to the C-suite executives who kind of see things from up above. So today we've got you kind of like in that middle category. But before we get into your career, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Well, I'm David Black. I'm currently in Tampa, Florida. I'm originally from Delaware. I did serve time in the military, U.S. Navy veteran. After the Navy, that's when I started my career in collections, national asset management in Atlanta, Georgia. Did that for a few years. And then after I left Atlanta, that's how I ended up in Tampa, Florida. Did a little bit of collections and sales in the Tampa area as well. And now I'm with National Recovery Solutions.
When you started your career, were you as an agent on the floor, frontline worker?
Yeah, absolutely. Started off as an agent. After about 2 years, I moved up to management with that company.
Going back a little bit now, outside of the Navy, any family?
Yeah, I'm a father of 6. Most of my family, most of my family is in Delaware or Jacksonville, Florida. We like to travel, get out, take road trips, like to spend time with the family, things like that.
That's awesome. It's great to know. I am one of 6 kids myself, so I know what it's like being in a large family. I only have 2 kids, so from a leadership perspective, that's awesome. Being a father of 6, I'm sure that's like being a CEO of a company. You've got to lead, and you've got a lot of different personalities that you have to appease, and you got to work with and make sure everybody's happy and taken care of. So this is great for the conversations that we're going to get into and here today. Let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about culture. And, for us, culture means a lot, different things for different people. Every organization has their own type of culture. And what I want to ask you is, what is your workplace culture? And, what is your role in helping define and create that culture?
Well, I would say the culture at National Recovery Solutions is a fun, low-stress culture where we challenge each other to be the best version of ourselves daily. Everyone helps each other. As leaders, we set the tone by maintaining commonly shared interests of the company and our employees as well.
Nice. And what do you do to help ensure that culture is thriving?
I would say how I help in defining that culture is being there to support your employees, your coworkers, make sure you're giving positive feedback and you're flexible at the same time.
Are you working remotely?
Yes.
Okay. And the rest of your team, are they remote or are they all in-house?
All of my agents are remote.
All of the agents are remote. So I'm kind of going to switch gears here and talk about the remote workforce. Have you, prior to COVID, were you guys all in office or were you guys remote prior to COVID?
Well, I've only been at National Recovery Solutions for a year.
Okay.
My previous employer, yes, we were remote during COVID.
Okay. And prior to COVID, were you all in the office?
Yeah, prior to COVID, it was all in office.
You've been in the industry for 20 years, and there's some challenges, between, managing a team that's, you're surrounded with versus managing a team that's, fragmented throughout the country and, on isolated in their own homes. What do you think is the biggest challenge when managing a remote workforce?
I would say my biggest challenge is to make sure engagement is proper throughout the day. Another challenge is you don't have that face-to-face interaction. So you may not know what someone is doing at the time. You may not be able there to address situations immediately as they come forth. So I would say those two things are my biggest challenges. Some of the things that I do to make sure that doesn't happen is I'm in constant communication with my reps daily, maybe 2 or 3 times a day by phone, make sure that they stay active in the chat when we put out certain communications as well. I'm doing my part to make sure that I can alleviate those things.
I think that's communication's a key part of building a strong culture. And again, going back to the remote workforce, being able to kind of bring everybody to the floor, having stand-up meetings, it's a lot easier. But there are different technologies now that kind of allow you to do that virtually. You mentioned chat. What is your chat tool of choice?
We use Microsoft Teams.
Okay. And you guys have a lot of conversations within those teams. You guys have breakout rooms. Is everybody in one single chat? What is your preferred, to build that culture? How are you using chat effectively?
Well, we have different chats based on the teams that we have. We have different chats for processes. We also have different chats for management, just various chats, individual chats, obviously. But we try to keep it as simple as possible and not overload our team with too many different chats. But we definitely have different chats for different processes and communications.
When you're building your culture and trying to build that engagement and using those chats, is there certain things that you're looking for through those chats? Is it the number of communications that whether they're silent, how are you measuring engagement outside of you having personal conversation with them?
What I personally look for is acknowledgement of the communication and then also feedback as well. Any questions, always leave that door open. Make sure you don't understand the communication, get with me. That way we can straighten that out. I look for acknowledgement and responses.
Switching gears a little bit, when we talk about engagement, on the opposite side of engagement is distractions. And with work from home, there is naturally going to be personal distractions that are happening. What strategies to use to identify and minimize those distractions?
I feel myself is I like checking in with my reps, making sure they don't have any issues that's going on. Just having a simple conversation a lot of times with your employees throughout the day will give you a determinant factor if there's an issue, if there's distractions. One of the things that I like to do is I like to manage by stats. I'm constantly looking at KPIs and things of that nature as well. Setting goals if I need to. If I feel a KPI is too low, then I'm going to set a goal for maybe the next hour or the rest of the day.
Nice. And how do you communicate those goals? Do you do those individually or do you do that through your teams?
Well, I do it through Teams, but I more so like to follow up with a phone call to the agent, addressing them one-on-one after the communication is out to make sure there's no misunderstandings or miscommunication.
It's a great point. And I'm curious from, all of the other contact centers, there's so many of them that are now remote. What would you rank the importance of that phone communication, that one-on-one communication with individual agents as part of making sure that they're staying engaged and not distracted?
Well, I think it's very important because sometimes in a chat, you may have someone that doesn't understand the communication, but they may not want to express that in the chat. So sometimes a follow-up call will help that misunderstanding or whatever the issue that they may have.
And is there a way that you identify that there's a miscommunication or a misunderstanding?
When I follow up, I make sure that, hey, did you look at the chat? Did you see what needs to be done? Any questions? Yes, no, and then move on to the next employee.
Oh, so you're touching base with every single one of your agents?
Absolutely.
Oh, nice. Very cool. I want to go on to leadership and management styles. It seems like you're very hands-on. You're making sure that you're touching base and communicating individually with your employees. There's a report that reveals that 92% of employees are more likely to stay with a company that provides opportunities for professional development. How do you define your management style and how has it evolved?
Well, as you mentioned, my management style is more hands-on. I like to manage based on stats. I have a sales background as well. So I like to manage by the stats. The stats will pretty much give you an indication of how your representative is going to finish the day or finish the week or month as far as hitting KPIs and their goal for the month. So I'm more of a hands-on manager, managed by stats as well.
Okay. So this is what we call objective management, where it's not an intuition or a gut feeling. It's based on empirical data that will show you whether somebody's performing and not performing. When
Yes.
you're looking at these KPIs, sometimes we break things down, KPIs down by different categories, things like behaviors, their activity, their attendance, things like that. So what kind of behaviors they have. Then there's effort. How many calls are they making? How many accounts are they working? And then skills like, how many right party contacts or how many deals have they closed? Then there's results, which is, okay, well, what's the outcome? How much money, how many dollars have they brought in as a result of their work effort? Which KPIs, from your perspective, since you are kind of data driven, do you focus on? Or is it a combination and do you change it up?
It's definitely going to be a combination. The two that drive me the most is going to be the amount of calls that they're making and the amount of accounts worked. The more calls you make, the more accounts you work, the more contacts you're going to have. And the more contacts you have, you're going to have better success in hitting your goal.
And so do you focus on what we call the top of the funnel? I mean, being from sales is how many accounts can you throw in, and you hope that you play the numbers game, that a certain percentage is going to actively result in success. Do you try to look at things where maybe the effort isn't quite there but the success is? I mean, do you see those sort of results where there's some people who just have higher skills and just don't have to work as many accounts?
You do see those situations with certain reps. The first ones that I mentioned, the KPIs that I like to address first, that leads me up to being able to listen into calls. If they're making enough calls, they're going to have more contacts. So that gives me the opportunity to give them feedback based on what I've heard on the call. So yeah, that leads up to, being able to coach in and monitoring and do one-on-ones and additional training and development as well.
So you're using the data not just to make sure that people are doing their jobs and then identifying areas where they need to improve. You're also providing the training and the coaching to help them improve.
Absolutely. Yes. On a daily basis. It's nonstop coaching.
The importance of the different roles and responsibilities that a manager has in a contact center, whether it's administrative, pulling reports, analyzing those reports, whether it's the accountability, just touching base with your team and ensuring that everybody has what they need and that they're doing their jobs. Maybe it's the disciplinary component, writing people up and making sure that they're held accountable, and the coaching and the training. So, just prioritizing your role, what would you say your top responsibility is, and then working our way backwards?
Well, I would say the top responsibility is looking at the data and then coaching from there. Coaching is very important. It makes employees feel that they're getting the proper feedback. It also helps with retaining those employees because you are developing them to be the best that they can be on a daily basis or monthly basis. So I would say looking at the data and then coaching, I don't really have too many issues outside of those two.
Feedback is a real critical part of your role, right? Providing that feedback. How frequently do you provide that feedback, and what would be the ideal feedback loop from your perspective?
Well, I provide feedback on a daily basis. I tend to not hone on the things that they did wrong, but I tend to hone on their strengths first, compliment them, give them positive feedback on that, and then tie into the things they could have did better on the call, not necessarily, hey, you did this bad or you did this wrong. This is how we can do this better. And then following up to make sure that they are implementing the feedback on the next call that they get or the next situation that they have. So
you seem to be a very direct sort of leader, data-driven, objective, ensuring that everybody has the tools and resources they need. How do you balance that, being somebody that is approachable, that is kind of a coach, almost like a friend? Where does that play a role in your leadership style?
well, I mean, you want your employees to feel that they can come talk to you about anything. So that's definitely important.
Just the balance between, I mean, you seem to me, from my perspective, just hearing you talk, very objective and data oriented. And there's a human element. I always say it's an 80-20 rule. You can get most of your story through the data. It's only 80% though. There's a human element that you have to kind of inject yourself and pull from conversations. If you're looking at data, this is an example. If you're looking at data and you're seeing zero productivity and you're now super upset, like what is going on here? You're not doing anything. You're not working. There's no performance until you have that conversation with somebody and realize like, hey, I've been sick, thrown up in a toilet for the past 3 hours. You have to have that conversation to get that information. But then also there's a follow-up like that empathy. How do you handle that? Is it just about the data? Or how do you balance database management versus, that human element?
Data is going to be an important factor into it, but you do have to talk to your employees to see if there's something that's driving that data, whether it be low or it be high. You have to conversate with them and kind of dig in sometimes a little bit deeper to see if there's another issue that needs to be addressed that may not have nothing to do with work.
Being in a contact center space, and you've been around the space for 20 years, it's repeatable tasks. You're doing the same thing pretty much all day, every day. And that usually leads to burnout. How do you monitor when somebody's on the verge of burnout, and how do you address that?
Well, I mean, usually when someone is burnt out, it usually starts with their attitude, not coming to work, missing days, leaving early, things like that. Typically, when you see those things starting to happen, you want to address those, see if there's any issues, see if there's anything that you're doing wrong. It could be your management style. It could be something that someone said to them on the phone, no matter what the case may be. Just kind of want to get that understanding of what's going on and then help your employees come up with some kind of resolution. There's a solution to every problem. So you have to have that conversation to find out what exactly is causing your employee to burn out. They may need to take additional time off. They may be an employee that's just a hard worker that doesn't like to take time off. So you may want to recommend, hey, take some time off to yourself, get yourself together, reset, come back.
Sometimes burnout can be confusing or confused with mental health, right? Or vice versa. And that can stem from personal situations, personal issues, or just having mental health issues. How do you recognize and address mental health issues within your team?
Well, everything starts with a discussion. Actually, I had this situation yesterday with someone. They weren't burnt out or anything like that. It's just an issue that they hadn't addressed with me because I'm a new manager to them. But I had a discussion, say, hey, thank you for letting me know this information because that lets me know I need to manage you a little bit different than I manage some of the other representatives. So to identify that, you definitely have to look at some of the things that's going on. Like I said, missing time, not coming to work, or statistics are low. And then once you have that conversation, coming up with a solution.
So are you usually looking for cues or clues into somebody kind of being slightly off? Or are you proactive in addressing things before they actually become problematic?
Well, I would say it's a little both. You want to be proactive, but every situation is not going to allow you to be proactive sometimes. When I do notice those things, then you want to address those immediately.
Is there any initiatives that you guys have implemented to promote mental health in the workplace?
Well, what I tend to do is make sure our employees know all of the resources that they have. They are going through a situation, also letting them know they can talk to myself if they don't feel comfortable talking to me. If they want to talk to another manager, I'm totally okay with that because sometimes employees may not feel they can talk to you about everything, even though I know that they can. They may not just feel comfortable. So we keep that open door with everyone. If you don't feel comfortable talking to me, you can talk to someone else and, we'll help you out.
Do you feel like you guys have that safe space that gives people that comfort level that they can talk to either yourself or other people within your organization?
I do. Honestly,
Yeah.
I do. Yes.
Yeah. And that's good. We've been talking to a lot of organizations, and that seems to be becoming more and more important and a priority as opposed to the recent past. I know coming up that normally nobody talks about their personal lives, let alone their personal mental health issues. And so just creating that safe space for people to be able to come to you and just be honest and just let you know, and then that there's resources available to help them through that tough time and making sure that they have a safe space to talk to somebody. I want to switch gears again here, and I want to bring up a topic of compensation versus incentives. Now, compensation is what people get paid, their hourly rate, there's a bonus structure, how they can earn commissions above and beyond their rate. Whereas incentives are going to be those contests, those tournaments, those giveaways, those promotions that you guys do. How important do you feel that incentives are as part of the culture that you guys have created for your organization? And is that as important or less important or more important than the compensation that you guys pay?
I think the incentive is definitely an important factor, and that compensation is great. But given the industry that we're in, incentives are what's going to drive most of your production with your employees. So the incentives are definitely important. I would say it's probably more important than sometimes the compensation.
What are some of the ways that you guys build out some of your, or you use your incentive budget?
We have different contests throughout the week or throughout the month outside of your platform. So we typically try to budget a few $100s for each team each month to give them a little push, maybe middle of the month or the beginning of the month. They're getting that one check and they're getting the bonus check at the end of the month. So they may need a little push at the beginning of the month because they pay bills and things like that. So we tend to run our contests at the beginning of the month to help them out. We do different things from gift cards to lunches, things like that.
I know that it's used as a tool to help boost productivity. How do you measure the importance of an incentives, a contests and tournaments and things, that stuff that you're talking about, as part of a culture builder and a way to engage your staff? Is it more just to get the productivity, or do you consider it a tool as an engagement tool to keep them engaged in their work and therefore resulting in better performance?
Well, yeah, I mean, you want the production, but you also want the engagement. You want the teamwork from each other. Because some employees, I mean, especially with the newer ones that work remote, because they are remote, they may not know everyone. So it has a multifaceted purpose, not just the production, but engagement, getting reps to know each other because you're pairing someone up that may not know their teammate. It's all done with different purposes in mind.
So we have, as you mentioned, you guys are using our ZIZO platform, and we have different contests and tournament types. Just to name a few, you have your one-on-ones, your team versus team, and you have an individual goal and then collaborative goal where everybody's working together. And then your classic tournaments, which is battle royale is what we call it, where it's everybody versus everybody. What do you find to be the most effective type contest? Or is there a purpose for the different types of contests as to what your goals are?
It's really no contest, I would say, that's specific to goals, even though we do run those contests from time to time. I personally like the team battles and then the battle royals. It builds morale, helps the team be competitive with other teams. So it's just not for the production. As I mentioned before, it's all about everybody working with each other. And competition is fun. It doesn't have to be nasty or anything like that. Competition is fun. It's a morale builder, and it keeps the reps engaged as well. And that's what we need as far as with a lot of our employees being remote. We need that engagement and we need that communication and them getting to know each other as well.
We recently we did a takeover. One of the departments wasn't within your organization, but another one of our clients, and where our customer success team started to design and build all of the contests for a month. And I just wanted to share this with you and our audience. And it's something new that we're working on to share with all of our customers, where when setting goals, we've seen managers in the past, specifically in this department that we were working with, set the goals very high. It's a pretty decent reward, and they're setting the goals pretty high, almost near, I don't want to call it impossible, but very difficult. When we were talking to the staff and saying, hey, how do you feel about these? Just getting some feedback. They're like, some of these goals they're not realistic and they're very difficult. So we set out to create a culture of winning is part of the initiative that we were having. So creating goals that were slightly above what they've been doing on average over the past week or month. You got to factor in seasonality. The rewards were nominal. They weren't that crazy, but people were excited for these contests because they were easy to achieve, or at least they felt they're within reach. And so they won, and they got really, really excited about that victory. And then we would set that next goal just slightly higher than that. Again, still within reach. What the outcome, and we're writing up a case study for this, and we'll definitely share it with you as we do with all of our clients. But just creating that culture of winning, making it achievable and within reach. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but building a culture where everybody wins and it's always an opportunity to just get slightly better. It doesn't have to be crazy. But what are your thoughts on that? And how do you feel about having goals where they're not extraordinary, but they are, again, getting people engaged?
I think it's a mindset thing. A lot of times, I think I have seen myself where reps are saying that the goals don't seem attainable. But as you work with each other and you're, like you said, you hit the smaller goals, then you bump it up, then it gives you a little boost that, hey, I can do this. So I personally like it because it's going to drive production. That in the end, you're going to have people making more money, and it's a win-win for everyone.
Couple more questions, and then I don't know if Emma and Jill, our producers, shared with you, but we are a gamification tool. We are going to play a game. I don't know how your trivia skills are, but we've got a trivia game between you and I. We'll play here at the end. But
Okay.
before we get to that, David, this has been great. Your insights has been very helpful, and especially coming from your perspective. We have a game here. We are a gamification platform, so we're always excited to create a level of competition and some giveaways here, or at least a level of pride to win. So we do what we call just a trivia contest. I'm gonna have Jill jump in here, and she's gonna tell us the rules, and then she's gonna share with us what the questions will be in that trivia. Are you ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
What is the largest reptile in the world?
I'm gonna say an
Crocodile?
alligator.
What type of whale is actually a dolphin?
A blue whale?
Beluga?
Who was the Queen of France during the French Revolution?
Queen Mary?
What year was the moon landing?
Got it. 65.
7.
Name at least 2 planets in our solar system that have rings.
Saturn and
Mars?
Uranus.
What are 2 countries in the United Kingdom?
Northern Ireland and UK.
Which direction does the sun rise from?
East.
How many bones are in the human body?
168.
206.
No, 212. 212.
What are diamonds made of?
Coal.
Oh,
I thought it was compressed coal, or I guess carbon, over like millions of years. But
Which planet is known as the blue planet?
Earth.
Why is honey called a convenient pantry staple?
because it doesn't go bad.
Who gave the U.S. the Statue of Liberty?
France.
France.
Yeah,
Good
I
job.
tried to give you an opportunity there,
Yeah.
David, but I was like, all right, he had enough.
What did we learn?
Thank you to David for joining us on the ZIZO Effect podcast. That wraps up today's episode of the ZIZO Effect podcast. Thank you to David Black for sharing his thoughts on managing remote teams, creating engagement through communication, and using data-driven insights to stay on top of performance. These strategies are essential for building a resilient, results-driven culture. As you think about your own team, consider how these insights can help drive your own results. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss upcoming episodes with more actionable insights. Get ready, it's game time.